What happens when an entire continent says no to $500 billion and the world is watching? So how did we reach this moment where three nations would risk everything to reject $500 billion and break the chains of history? France arrived in West Africa with a breathtaking offer, $500 billion for the rights to uranium buried beneath the Sahel. This was not just a business proposal. This was an attempt to buy the future, to secure energy dominance, and to keep Africa locked in the same old cycle of resource extraction. But the Alliance of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the AES Alliance, stood together and said no. No to another century of foreign control. No to contracts written in Paris but paid for with African suffering. These were not quiet negotiations behind closed doors. This was a political earthquake. The stakes could not be higher. If the African alliance has miscalculated, they risk not only economic isolation, but retaliation from the world's most powerful nations. But if they hold the line, they can change the balance of global power, seize control of their own destiny, and inspire a new era of self-determination for the entire continent. This isn't just about uranium. It's about centuries of shadows and sudden sunlight. To truly understand this turning point, we have to look back at the decades of extraction that shaped these nations and the fires of resistance that united them. For generations, France mined the heart of Africa, extracting gold, oil, and, above all, uranium. These riches fueled French prosperity, while the people of West Africa remained in poverty, watching their wealth slip away, time and again, through foreign hands. Picture the lights of Paris, glowing bright for decades, powered by uranium from Niger. Meanwhile, entire villages across the Sahel sat in darkness, with children studying by candlelight and families dreaming of hope instead of electricity. This story is not new. In fact, it is as old as colonialism itself. France became rich by draining the continent's resources, paying a fraction of their true value, and leaving behind empty promises, broken contracts, and communities stuck in cycles of dependency. But now, a new alliance has risen from this history, the Alliance of Sahel States, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Three nations, each led by determined military leaders, have joined hands with one goal: to break the chains of exploitation and reclaim control over Africa's natural wealth. Their message is clear. The era of taking Africa for granted is over. These leaders are not waiting for permission or outside approval. They are daring to imagine an Africa where the fruits of the land benefit those who live on it. But when France landed, ready to seal another deal, they were met not with eager partners, but with defiant strength, a wall of resistance that would shatter business as usual. The risk? Enormous. Defying France and turning down the promise of $500 billion means facing isolation, retaliation, and an uncertain future. Yet, clinging to the old system guarantees only more poverty, more subservience, and a future written by others. $500 billion on the table, and a continent that finally says, not today, not ever. This was the standoff that stunned the world. Inside those closed-door meetings, what unfolded would shake Paris to its core and reveal Africa's bold new blueprint for self-determination. Let's go behind the scenes to see how the AES turned the tables on a former empire.
La proposition Bruxelles was dazzling en papier. $1 trillion en échange de long-term rent à uranium mines, price controls et le pouvoir de dicter Africa's economic direction. Mais beneath the surface, it was a new mask for an old story. A deal that would lock the continent into dependency and strip it of its future.
AES leaders laid it out plainly. The riches offered today would cost far more tomorrow. Accepting would mean betraying the memory of those who fought for independence and condemning future generations to yet another cycle of exploitation.
Diplomates arrivaient expectant une routine négociation. Briefcase loadé avec contrat, convaincus leur offre serait irrésistible. Instant fait, they face a wall of defiance. L'unifié militaire leadership de Burkina Faso, Mali et Niger, backed par roaring crowds en city after city. Together, they made their message unmistakable. Africa is not for sale and ancestral sacrifices are not a bargaining chip.
Resisting France's deal wasn't just a bold statement. It was a risk with sharp edges. Turning Paris away could trigger economic sanctions, diplomatic backlash, or even covert attempts to destabilize the alliance. But selling out would mean something worse, surrendering Africa's destiny for a quick payday. But the AAS alliance wasn't just defiant, they were prepared. What they unveiled next would show not only what they're refusing, but the bold vision they're determined to build in its place.
As a Français delegation waited for an answer en marble-lined meeting rooms, the real battle was being waged in the streets, and on the hearts of millions determined to chart a new course.
If not France, then who? If not now, then when? That is the question echoing from the crowded streets of Ouagadougou to the halls of power across Africa. The Alliance of Sahel States is not waiting for permission. They are rewriting the rules of resource ownership, starting with uranium. AES's vision is as bold as it is unprecedented. They will mine, refine, and market their uranium entirely on African terms, keeping control and profits within the continent. No more signing away decades of wealth for quick cash. This time, the resources stay in African hands, driving African development. The new blueprint for partnership is radical. AES is reaching out, but not to former colonial powers. They are seeking technical alliances with countries in Asia, in Latin America, and, most importantly, with fellow African nations. The goal is to exchange not cash, but technology, machinery, and infrastructure that can lift the entire region. But it's not just about uranium or profit. AES leaders have pledged that every franc of revenue will be reinvested into their people, into building schools for children who have learned by candlelight, hospitals where mothers will no longer fear dying in childbirth, clean water for villages long forgotten, and electricity for communities left in the dark for generations. The world is watching. Tension crackles in the air as the stakes become clear. This is about far more than business. It is a battle for dignity, hope, and the future of Africa. But can the alliance survive the pressure and deliver on its promise? They are determined to break the cycle of dependency that has haunted Africa for centuries. If this experiment in resource sovereignty succeeds, it could ignite a wave of similar movements across the continent, rewriting the global balance of power. But if it fails, the alliance risks economic isolation, political backlash, and setbacks that could haunt a generation. This isn't just history. It's a playbook for anyone who wants to break free from old chains. With global eyes fixed on West Africa, the next phase of this showdown is about to unfold, and the first test will come sooner than anyone expects. If this lesson is missed, the cycle of exploitation will just continue. But if it's embraced, it could inspire a new era, not only for Africa, but for communities and countries around the world looking to reclaim what's rightfully theirs. What does this mean for you, for policymakers, or for anyone facing unequal power? The lesson is clear. You don't have to accept a rigged game. By standing together, making tough choices, and refusing to be bought, it's possible to change the entire script, even when the odds seem stacked against you. The Alliance of Sahel States' rejection of France's uranium deal is more than a symbolic gesture. It's a roadmap for reclaiming dignity and taking back control, not only for nations, but for individuals everywhere who feel sidelined by powerful interests. This moment is proof that saying no to an unequal bargain can be the first step toward owning your own future. Real development isn't about accepting handouts or being locked into dependency. It's about taking risks, making long-term sacrifices, and building systems where the benefits stay with the people who produce them. The leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger chose short-term hardship over another century of exploitation, showing that true independence sometimes means walking away from even the most lucrative offers. The age of taking is over. The world is watching. Where do you stand? So as the dust settles in West Africa, what comes next for the balance of power? The world is now watching how these nations turn principle into lasting progress. This moment is not just about uranium or $500 billion. It is about a continent drawing a line in the sand, refusing to let its future be sold for anyone else's profit. The Alliance of Sahel States has done more than reject a $500 billion offer. They have claimed the right to decide their own destiny. So ask yourself, when the old order cracks and the balance of power shifts, will you see the opportunity or cling to what is familiar and fading? The new era does not wait for permission. The choice is yours. For too long, Africa's resources have fueled distant cities, while local communities remained in the dark. Today, leaders from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have said, enough. This is a seismic shift. A new map is being drawn, one where dignity and self-determination take center stage. On this scale comes with risks. Isolation, retaliation, and hard choices may follow. But history remembers those who dare to stand up, those who refuse to be defined by the past. The future will favor the bold, the ones who recognize that a new world is emerging and choose to shape it rather than be swept aside.